Hello, thanks for coming back. Today we're going to be making Nashville Hot fried chicken sandwiches. So to get started, we're going to need a couple of ingredients, a couple of spices that you would have laying around the house anyway. We're going to need brown sugar, cayenne. People use cayenne. I like to use a little bit of cayenne and some ground chipotle powder. I'm also using smoked paprika. Most people will use regular paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, ground mustard, and black pepper. That's all you really need for the spice mix. We're also gonna need some oil. So what I like to do is I'll take all these ingredients, put them in a saute pan, just toast them a little bit, remove half of them, and then in the half that's still in the pan, I'll put some oil. So it gets the oil warm, it'll extract even more of that flavor. And then the half that I reserve, I'll set aside to cool. And once it's cool, I'll throw it in the flour mix. Now you just want to give this a little bit of a toast, just to get all the flavors nice and aromatic. After about a minute or two, you can start to smell the aromatics going, and you can see a little bit of smoke coming off the side. That's when you know you're almost there. Now I can start to see the color change. So what I'm gonna do is remove half, set that aside to cool, spill some on my stove while I'm at it, and add in the oil. So in the pan, I put all of the seasonings except the brown sugar. I'm gonna add the brown sugar to the reserved half and the half with the oil right now. Now, as you can see, after I added the brown sugar, it is a little bit thick. So I wanna go back and add a little bit more oil. If yours is too thick, just add a little bit more oil. You want it to be nice and liquidy. Just like that. So now that the Nashville Hot Oil is cooled a little bit, I'm gonna take it and put it into this squeeze bottle right here. It makes things a lot easier. You wanna make sure to get all of the seasoning in there. And if you see recipes for stuff with all dried ingredients, like I've seen that says, oh, put it in an airtight container and put it on your shelf for a month, it'll last longer than a month. It'll last as long as the most recent to expire ingredient will last. If you have 15 ingredients in something and the very first thing that'll expire is 6 months down the road, the product will last 6 months. As long as it's all shelf stable, you go by the very first product to expire. So now we're gonna make the marinade. What we're gonna put in it is some buttermilk, pickle juice, hot sauce, and a couple of eggs. That's all you really need. What the buttermilk does, the acid helps break down some of the meat, so it nice and tenderizes it. The pickle juice will give it a nice a nice flavor to it, and we're also gonna throw in some hot sauce, which will give it a little bit of heat. It's really nice. You can throw in whatever hot sauce you want. I like to go kind of heavy on the hot sauce. The vinegar in there will help break it down. You have some nice salinity from the hot sauce as well. Give it a good mix. One hot sauce I really don't use ever is Tabasco, because to me, it is not really a hot sauce. It is more of an ingredient that you put in something. Even though I am putting it in here, I generally don't like it. I find that any self-respecting hot sauce lover doesn't use Tabasco on anything. They only put it in it, but I don't have any Tabasco in my house, so I'm using this one right here, which has got a little bit of heat to it. It's a habanero based, so it also had a little bit of fruitiness from the habaneros themselves. And on the side here, it's a 3 out of 5 on the heat. I like to put everything in the bowl first and mix it together and give it a taste before I add the eggs. See if I need to add more hot sauce, see if I need to add more pickle juice, or I put too much of either one of them in and I have to add, cut it with some extra buttermilk. It's good. You can really taste the pickle juice. It's got a little bit of heat from the hot sauce. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. just because it's definitely not hot enough. So when I'm making Nashville hot chicken, or really any fried chicken, I like to use chicken thighs. They have a lot more flavor, they have a lot more moisture than chicken breast does. Granted, they're not as lean, they may not be as healthy for you, but you're eating a fried chicken sandwich, you may as well go in. When you get the chicken thighs, I get them with the skin off, but they still do come with some fat, so I'll just trim it off a little bit. You don't really want to remove too much, but if you're putting it on a sandwich, you want to make sure that you're able to eat the whole sandwich without any issues. It's really not too much taken off, and you also want to reserve this for stock, or you could grind it up. It's great in chicken meatballs because it has enough fat in it, and when you grind it, it breaks everything down nice small pieces. So chicken meatballs, chicken sausage, whatever, it's delicious. All right, so now that the chicken's cleaned and the marinade's done, we're just gonna take the breasts and we're gonna throw them all into the marinade right now. This is important because, like I said earlier, you want to let the acidity in the buttermilk and acidity in the pickle juice do its thing, and in the hot sauce, it's gonna break it down, it's gonna tenderize it, and it's gonna make it all that much more delicious. So you wanna let it sit for at least an hour, possibly 2. If you wanna let it sit overnight, that's fine too. I wouldn't let it go more than that, just because the acidity in there, it'll change the texture too much. But overnight in the fridge is fine, but that's all I would push it. So now that the chicken's been marinating about an hour, hour and a half, what we're gonna do is take the rest of the seasoning mix, the half that we reserved, and we're going to incorporate it into the flour. So now that the remaining seasoning is on top of the flour, we're just gonna give it a mix, make sure it's incorporated very well. Now we're gonna take the chicken. What you wanna do is just drain off as much as you can without making it too dry. And when you're breading stuff like this, what you want to do is keep one hand for the wet, one hand for the dry. That way you don't wind up with club hand. When you're dredging like this, one thing you want to make sure of is that you open up all of the folds, any creases that may have occurred in there while you're trying to get all the seasoning on it. That way you have a completely evenly covered piece of chicken, no dry spots, no wet spots. Everything is exactly how it should be. So now that the chicken is completely dredged, I'm actually gonna go back into the wet mixture, but make sure that it is completely dried off, because when you go back into the wet mix, if you have clumps or big spots of the dry seasoning and the flour, what's gonna happen is that it's just gonna automatically roll off of it. It won't actually stick to it. You wanna make sure that it's completely coated in flour, but not too much on there as well. And again, you still wanna keep one hand wet, one hand dry. You can see what I'm doing. I'm shaking everything off. So it's completely covered, but there's no excess flour anywhere on there. Double coating it will ensure a nice crispy layer. So I went from the wet to the dry, back to the wet. Now I'm gonna go into the dry again. And if you ever wonder how fast food chicken places get that wonderful, wonderful crispy coating on it with like little pieces on it, it's not just an even coating, it's got all the little chunks and crispy bits. What they do is, you can see how it started a little bit in here, but what they do is they'll take a little bit of the wet mix and put it in there. I'm gonna go with a little 6 spoonfuls. So now that I mixed it, you can see there's some chunks in there. You know, I think it might even need a little bit more. Ah, there we go. That's what you're looking for. Now you see how there are little pieces in here? That's what you want. That's what you're going for. And once again, make sure you drain off any excess liquid and put it in here. Once it's drained off, throw it in the dredge here. And now, as you can see, it has all those wonderful pieces on it that will give you that nice, crispy, crunchy texture. Once we're done coating this, we're gonna put it on a rack and put it back in the fridge for another hour or so, maybe 2, because if you do this and then you try and fry it right away, there's a good chance that the coating will come off when you take your first bite. This way, if you let it rest, it'll ensure that the flour seasoning mix will adhere to the protein itself. As you can see now, the chicken has been floured twice. So just to reiterate, we went from the marinade, which has been in there about an hour, hour and a half. You let it go up to 2 hours, whatever you want. Then we went to the flour with the seasoning in it back to the original marinade, and then we took some of that marinade liquid and we put it into the flour to get it all nice little crispy bits. That's what gives all of these little pieces and little nuggets that are hung on there. It gives it that nice, wonderful, crispy texture when you're eating it. Now, it's gonna chill in the fridge for about an hour or so. You wanna set the fryer to 360 degrees Fahrenheit. This will ensure a crispy crust and cook all the way through. You wanna cook it for about 3.5 minutes as well. That'll ensure that it'll be completely cooked and crispy. If you don't have a deep fryer, you could always shallow fry in a cast iron skillet, or if you have a Dutch oven, either way, just fill it up a couple of inches, get it up to 360 degrees, and then put your chicken in there. If you are only shallow frying it, you will need to turn it over about halfway through. Regardless if you are cooking in a deep fryer or a shallow fryer, it should be about 3.5 minutes to completion. I just took the chicken out of the fridge. It's been well rested. So next thing I'm gonna do is toast the buns. Traditionally, this sandwich goes on white bread, but I like a little bit of brioche instead. First I'm gonna do is take some butter. You don't want too much butter on there, just a little bit to coat. Make sure you butter both sides, and then we'll go throw it on the pan. So now that it's buttered, we're gonna give it a nice little toast. You're gonna wanna toast this on a medium-low heat. You wanna get it nice and brown, but you can't go too fast, otherwise you're gonna wind up burning the butter and the bread as well. You may have noticed that I didn't put any salt inside the seasoning. I was waiting till after we fry it, but you wanna make sure that once it comes out of the fryer is the moment that you put salt on it, because that way the salt will actually stick to the product itself. It won't just fall off, but it'll fall off if you wait even 30 seconds. So once it comes out of the fryer, once it's still in the basket, put a little salt on it, flip it, put a little salt on the other side as well. That'll ensure that it will stick. And you wanna make sure that you use a finer salt. You don't wanna use kosher or flake salt for that, otherwise it won't stick. Another reason I didn't put salt in the seasoning mix is because there is salt in the hot sauce that I put in there. There is salt in the pickle brine. So I didn't want to over season it at all. That's why you wanna just put on a little bit of salt after you fry it. So now that it's out of the fryer, the next step is to build the sandwich and shove it in your pie hole. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the fried piece of chicken, put it in the bowl, and the reserved oil and seasoning mix is what we're gonna be putting on here. So a little bit of oil in the seasoning mix, give it a toss, flip it over, a little bit more. You wanna make sure it's completely covered. A key part of the Nashville Hot is this seasoning and oil mixture that's on it. Sometimes if you're doing it in the pan, in a cast iron pan for your fryer, what you wanna do is use some of that oil as well. You'll take that out and mix that into your spice mix. The reason I made it with separate oil is because I knew I was deep frying it, but if you're doing it in the pan, use that oil, put that onto your seasoning mix. So now the final step is assembly. Traditionally, like I said, it just gets pickles on white bread, but I prefer the brioche a little bit more. So as you see, I got some oil reserve left over in here. I'm gonna put it on the sandwich. Take a couple of pickles, or a lot of pickles, depending on what you like. You could use either bread and butter or dill. Bread and butters are a little sweeter. The dills are tangier. So depending on what you like, do you want a sweeter sandwich? You want something a little more acidic? Go with what you want. There's no wrong answer to this. So now that the sandwich is done, I like to use a serrated knife for this to go through. And because since you have this soft bread, you don't want to use a chef's knife and have it squish the bread. It's not very good food that way. There's the sandwich. All right, so now sandwich is done. Got the crispy thigh, a lot of the seasoning on there, some pickles, nice toasted and buttered brioche. It should be drippy like that. You should have to eat it like this, especially me, because I have a tray that catches everything. So the sandwich is nice and moist from the thigh and some of the oil. Nice and crispy. It's got a nice crunch to it. Pickles give it a nice little bite. It's a good sandwich. Full recipe will be down below. If you care to, please like, subscribe, share, follow me on all the socials at the Chef Knopf everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the same handle. Thank you. See you next time.